Hello, my name is DJ Ninja. If you're watching this, I'm assuming you're part of Vlad's Draft League. If not, well, welcome for finding this. This is my power ranking of all the teams for this season Pokemon Draft League. Quick rundown. I'm doing this semi-blind. I'm talking about this with each team in a vacuum and rating them by how good the team I think is. And I'm talking purely the team on its own. I'm not talking about it in compared to how good the trainer running the team is or how good their matchups are into their opponents. I'm talking purely about what I think of this team individually. That being said, for some of the teams that I think are a little bit weaker than others, I might give a few tips for things that I might possibly change on them or look to fix. That being said, Zach McD, he just did his rankings a little bit ago for the teams. Here's his rankings on the screen now. Number one's cut off. Number one is Bradzi. Overall, I agree with his rankings, but I kind of want to do mine on my own. So we're going to start. And I'm actually going to start, and we're going through each team alphabetically. There'll be breaks in the video or like on the timeline to show you which team I'm talking about when. And yeah, so basically how the format works, everyone picks different Pokemon from each tier. One tier 1 and one tier 2 are guaranteed, along with two tier 3, 4, and 5s, and then 100 points to spend on other Pokemon. Yeah. Here's a general look of the teams. I'm going very quickly because I'm going to go over them all in more detail individually. I think there's a lot of good teams, and so we're going to start. Actually, we'll start with Austin. We're going to go alphabetical. So here's Austin's team. Austin's team is Ursaluna Blood Moon, Metagross, Porygon 2, Jolteon, Typhlosion, Regigigas, Bellossom, Dustox, Dragonite, and Seaking. I think the team's decently strong. With Terra Captains of Porygon 2 and Regigigas, I think that it has good versatility. Allows Regigigas a few turns, maybe by swapping its type. Gives it better resistances in order to get set up and wait out a slow start. Porygon 2, I think, is just good mon in general. I think it benefits from having other typings, such as Terra Electric or Ice, for a better stab. As far as speed tiers go, team's very, very good. Lack of a dark weakness, lack of a dark resistance, I'm not a fan of. I think the team's missing a few types. For example, like with Dragonite and Metagross, I feel like I see the start of a nice Steel Fairy Dragon Core, but what's missing is the Fairy. There's no Fairy type on the team, which I do think the team is lacking. And that's one of my big issues with the team, is it has a lot of the same types. So if you look, you see I count 1, 2, 3 normal types. Yes, 2 of them are Terramons, but still, my point stands. I don't like the triple normal, and if you look, kind of gives it a bit of a fighting weakness, but with Dustox and Dragonite, and I'm assuming Dragonite will be there basically every week. I see a good offensive core between Dragonite and Ursaluna Blood Moon, and the issue being that though that they're both ice weak, so be careful for ice types. I do think they could actually really screw this team over, especially because your mons that resist it, like Seaking and Jolteon or Typhlosion, aren't that bulky. Metagross is, but even then, Metagross doesn't want to take like Choice Specs powered Ice Beam. With no real way as well with speed control. You could potentially run Trick Room with Porygon 2, but I don't like Trick Room in singles that much. And with a lot of your mons being a little bit on the slower side, it could potentially work. But your main stronger mons are your faster ones, so I would say it's not really worth it. Overall, though, I like this team. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. It's lacking type variety, but has a lot of different win cons. All right. Moving on from Austin, we've got Big. Oh, well, that's a typo. It's supposed to be Bacon, not Batkin. as far as the team goes, I think this is actually one of the more interesting ones. So, let's talk about what we got. We got Marshadow, Grimmsnarl, Terra Flygon, Roserade, Terra Lycanroc, Midday, Golisopod, Pidgeot, Luxray, Heatran, and Garbodor. First thing I want to say off the bat, you have a lot of hazards, and I mean a lot of hazards. You have 3 Stealth Rock setters, 3 Spike setters, 2 Detox Spike setters. The big issue I'd say is only 2 Defoggers as your hazard removal, and one of which is weak to Stealth Rocks, which I really don't like. As far as like typing and speed goes, I think the team's pretty good. Like as it says, you've got big, ice, and ground and psychic weaknesses. With 2 ground immune mons, I don't think that's big of an issue. You also have a dark type, so I don't think the psychic one's as big. Ice with Heatran, you're not gonna ever have to worry about an ice type attack necessarily. You always have that switch in. And I think this is a very good team. I think that core of like Steel Fairy Dragon with Heatran, Flygon, and Grimmsnarl, very good. A lot of bulk. I mean, Heatran is such a good mod, in my opinion. Very good setup, very good versatility. I think this is a really good team. I haven't even talked about Marshadow. I think that Pokemon is absolutely disgusting. Fighting and Ghost, such a good type combination. Luxray, I think for tier 5 mon, absolute steal. I think that mon can do a lot of work, especially with Guts and Trailblaze. Terra Captains, though. I don't know how I feel about the Flygon. I think I can see it. I hope they steer away from Terra Electric Flygon. I get why people run Terra Electric on Levitate mons. I really don't like it, especially if the mon doesn't have like a good electric move or like stat to really take care of it. Like I think, does Flygon get Thunder Punch? Because if Flygon gets Thunder Punch, that might change my opinion. It does, but like, but I like this team. I do like this team. I think it's pretty good. I think between Heatran behind wall screens is going to be pretty hard to get rid of. I mean, I think Heatran's just a particularly good Pokemon in general. And so, yeah. Lots of good pivot options. I think both your Defog mons having U-turn as well is really nice. It can defog, get out. I mean, Terra Bug, Flygon, actually. Ooh, Terra Bug first impression is pretty good. You have a lot of utility, actually, in my opinion. But my other issue with this team is it's kind of frail, which can indeed be an issue. Just because your main bulk is on Heatran. Your main bulk is like Heatran and what Garbodor is a little bit kind of physically overall though I feel like the team is lacking in bulk. I think Grimmsnarl absolutely helps it with screens. And so this team's gonna get a 7 out of 10 for me. It's got good core, and it's got good hazards. But it needs more hazard removal. And that's my big issue with it. I think though, like if your Marshadow can get up and running, you're gonna like win matches out the wazoo. All right, moving on to Ben's team, and this is the first team that I have a real big issue with. Let's talk about this. So, here's the team. I don't think Ben is yet to declare his Terramons. He is not. So, Ben's team is Skeledirge, Volcarona, Okidogi, Typhlosion Hisui, Ambipom, Slurpuff, Ludicolo, Wugtrio, Alolan Golem, and Dedenne. I have big issues with this team, and it is for one main reason, and that is the massive overlap. So, elephant out the room, you have some good speed coverage, which is very nice. You got a lot of Pokemon of different varying speed tiers. Wugtrio is a pretty fast mon, but you have so many ground weak Pokemon. Because you have Dedenne, you have 2 fire types weak to ground, you have Okidogi, and you've got Alolan Golem is 4 times weak, and your only ground resist is Ludicolo. Major issue. Major issue in my eyes. You're so incredibly ground weak, and ground is one of the most common offensive types. I'm not talking about the other thing. There's so much overlapping types is my other issue with this team. You have 3 fire types, a couple of which do the same thing. You have 2 electric types, 2 water types, and this is the first team that I'm actually going to advertise for changes for. The other thing is, as well as you look, lack of hazards with only 1 hazard removal in Volcarona, which you're probably not going to want to bring as your defogger. You got sticky webs on Slurpuff and stealth rocks on Golem, and that is it. That is all for hazards. You have 2 options. Now, to be fair, you have a web setter. I think webs are really good. I think actually Slurpuff's a pretty good one, because Slurpuff can also run a supportive or offensive set because it gets moves like Wish and Heal Bell, but also gets Belly Drum, Citrus Berry on Burden, Acrobatics, and Play Rough. Like, it can run as a really good, actually, offensive Mon in that case, with Unburden. As far as priority options go, it's decent as well. And I think Ambipom is actually a very nice Mon, but I really hate the triple fire type, so I'm giving this team a 4 out of 10. And this is actually the first team I'm going to advertise, actually remark on changes for. And my big one comes with, you need not a ground type of resistance, you need a ground immunity. And so my recommendation is to change Hisuian Typhlosion to Orthworm. I think Orthworm fits a lot of your issues. So, for example, like, if we just take a look, we say we place it on the dock. They're the same tier as well, which is why I'm advertising this change. A lot of your weaknesses get a little bit resolved, because it gives you also just a Psychic Resist, it gives you a Rock Resist, and I think the Pokemon is so actually really nice. Really good physical wall, which I think the team is kind of needing. You have Okidogi, and but Golem does not live a hit from a single Earthquake. Let's be very clear. Meanwhile, it gives you a complete immunity to ground. In fact, actually, it heals Orthworm. Orthworm loves to take Earthquakes for days. Yes, Shedtail is banned, but Orthworm has very good actual other options. I mean, the biggest one, for example, is it's a really good Body Press Mon. And, if I'm not mistaken, it's not Terra banned, so it can be other types as well. But still keeps that ground immunity with its ability. I think it's really good. I would probably change... the reason I also would change Hisuian Typhlosion is because if you want a fast fire type, you've got Volcarona. If you want a fire ghost type, you've got Skeledirge. And also, the other nice thing about Orthworm, gives you another Stealth Rocks and a Spike Setter. So, that's the reason I'm giving this a 4 instead of a 0, or like a lower score than that, is because I like some of the ideas here. I like some of the ideas here a lot. Like, they are actually really good. You have some really good mods drafted, like Skeledirge, Volcarona, Ambipom. Ambipom actually won last season under my team. Mwah. Go Ambipom, Mr. Hands. And, like, you have some really good supportive mons. And you have mons that can carry and win games. But there's too much overlapping types. It gives you such big weaknesses that are very, very abusable. I'd also look at getting another remover. I'm not big on Ludicolo. I won't lie. I'm not big on Ludicolo, and I think there are mons in Tier 2 that can be your remover in its place. Don't quote me on that, though. Actually, I don't... like Skuntank, for example. I think Skuntank could work well. That gives you another... But... Actually, Weezing could also be a very good mon. Let me take a look. Because I believe Weezing gets Defog. Or I know Weezing Galar gets Defog. Oh, but it gets Toxic Spikes. Never mind. Never mind, you're on. Sorry, Ben. I lied to you. But, as I was saying, though, I think that... I personally think swapping Orthworm out, or swapping Typhlosion for Orthworm would help your team a lot. I do like some parts of this team. It is very very mixed attacking as well. Like, you do have, like, Volcarona and Skelders are your big special attackers, but you don't really need more beyond that in my eyes. I mean, like, look at this thing. You know, like, Skelders has some pretty good bulk behind it. And then you have, like, Okie Dokie, Ambipom. Your, like, more supportive mons can be your physical attackers. And they can be pretty good physical attackers. Like, don't diss, like, a Golem Explosion or Stone Edge. It can fucking hurt. Like, but again, I think your team needs more hazards. A little bit more hazard removal might help a lot. Actually, it would help a lot. And I think you have too many overlapping types, so I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. Moving on. Bradzi. Team kind of... This is actually the team that Zach had rated highest. I have to agree, it is really fucking good. I don't necessarily know if it's Team 1. So let's break it down. So we got... Because I don't think Bradzi's done his Terra Captains either. Nope, he hasn't. Okay. So we have Magearna, Salamence, Delphox, Decidueye, Fortress, Sharpedo, Electrode, Stoutland, Megalopony, Hypno. Core. The actual core, with Magearna, Salamence, Megalopony. I think those 3 mons really good as your top tiers. Straight about. I think Megalopony, this mon is disgusting. So good. Magearna, also good. But I think in draft, Magearna struggles a little bit. It just, between like Calm Mind and Shift Gear, it can take a little bit too much work to set up. As far as speed tiers go, let's be real. Electrode 150, not real. That Pokemon is not a real Pokemon. It has... The biggest thing that Electro brings is a fast Thunder Wave and Explosion. So it can be that, like, Suicide, like, maybe you taunt, maybe you explode. That's what it does. Moving on to the other mons, though, I think there are some very good parts. Zach talks about the Salamence a bit. I think Salamence can be a good mon once it gets up and running, but there's so much stuff that can get slowed down. It's got a 4 times weakness to one of the most common types. Offensively, I mean, with Ice Beam and Weak to Ice, which it does actually have to worry about a lot in my eyes. 135 of attack, though, nothing to scoff at on both it and Lopunny, especially with then when you pair it with 130 on some attack on Magearna, and 114 on Delphox. Like, I think this team can absolutely do a lot of work. Is it the best team? I don't know, frankly. Let's talk about hazards. Got a lot of options. You have Fortress, so you have a lot of options. My issue is, though, I feel like there's a chance that Fortress could get too big a role where it's trying to set up your hazards and be your spinner, which I think is just a little bit hard for Fortress. I mean, it's hard for any Pokemon. Like, let me make that clear. Having any Pokemon be both your setter and spinner backs you into a corner because you're putting too much on that one Pokemon. That's 2 to 3 of its move pool already taken for those hazards. Got 2 Explosion mons, though, which is nice, with both Electrode and Fortress on vastly different sides of your speed spectrum. Stoutland, I feel like, can do a little bit work with really hard-hitting Stab, plus Intimidate. Sharpedo with Speed Boost is also really good. And then, the big thing, though, this team is lacking defensively. I mean, you do have mons like Hypno and Magearna, who do have decent special bulk, and then you have Fortress, really is your physical bulk. I think while this team can absolutely get going and get up and going against the team with webs or just even faster mods like Dragapult, for example, I feel like it could potentially take advantage on you. I'm still going to give this a 9 out of 10. I think this is a very good team. I'm moving 9 out of 10. So I'm giving it 9 out of 10. It's very strong, but it's a little frail with its carries. Just, you know, your mons are really going to be doing the work. They don't have a lot of recovery options. I mean, Salamence does. Salamence gets both Roost and Wish. And Megalopony gets Drain Punch, but I think those are a little bit, for lack of a better word, like circumstantial. And yeah, like for example, with those like overlapping weaknesses, like I think it's very easy for a Pokemon like Volcarona Quiver Dance could easily come in and take out 1 or 2 before the others can react. But no, this is a very fucking good team. Like, Bradzi has drafted very well. I'm not sure what Electrode's point is. I think that it can't, like, it just doesn't have enough damage. He might make it his Terra Captain, which in that case it could. With Terra Electric Thunderbolts, it could actually do a little bit of damage. But I think the mon's just offensively too weak to really do a lot. Besides a little bit of fast utility. Moving on, Joseph's team. So for Joseph's team, we have Pheromosa, Thunder Syrian, Salazzle, Melodic, Golurk, Flapple, Mr. Mime, Perugly, King Gambit, and Dugong. You have some very threatening Pokemon right off the bat, mainly with Pheromosa and King Gambit. Beyond that, though, I struggle to see where the team really, like, does well, for lack of a better word. And let me explain what I mean when I say that. So, Pheromosa and King Gambit are very good Pokemon. Don't get me wrong. King Gambit struggles a little bit more in draft, and that's just the nature of the Mon. But the big issue I have with this team is there is not really, in my eyes, a reliable core. And I really like when teams have a core with, like, their main Pokemon, which this team, to me, doesn't feel like it has. So, like, let's break it down. Let's look at these Pokemon. Pheromosa, very good on its own, but it doesn't really form a core with anything. You do have kind of a Steel Fairy Dragon and Fire Water Ice with King Gambit, Mr. Mime, and Flapple, and then Melodic, Salazzle, and Flapple. Or I guess Salazzle, Flapple, and Dugong. I don't like either of those two cores, or any of those three cores, really. It's just, to me, they just feel a little bit inconsistent, just with the Mons in them. Usually when I see a core, I usually like to see, like, one offensive Mon or two more defensive ones, and I like all of them to have, like, general bulk. So, like, one of my favorite ones has always been, like, Urshifu, Arcanine, and Amoonguss. This is, and I'm talking specific singles, like, I don't really see a core here with Flapple, Melodic, and Salazzle. That being said, you have massive speed, like Pheromosa is so good for this team. You also have no real major weaknesses, and I think that is extremely good for your team in general. I like this team a lot, though I won't lie, but I mainly like it because of your carries. Like, I think you absolutely can. I struggle to see what the Terra Captains can do. That is actually another thing I struggle with. Like, I don't know what you're going to do with Salazzle with its Terra. I don't know if it's necessarily the best Mon that can get a good usage out of it. Same with Perugly. I guess with Perugly, you probably actually just want to run, like, Stab Terra, make it hit a bit harder. I'm not sure. Those Mons just leave me a little bit more confused about what's going on. There's parts of this team I really like. I think, like, Thundurus, Therian, really good special Pokemon. Pheromosa is going to be so hard for your opponents to draft against because, hey, you don't know if it's running physical or special moves. And if need be, King Gambit can always clean up games in the end. Flapple has a chance to get ahead with D-Dance sets, and Melodic can be a little bit of wall annoying. So there are parts of this team I think are really good. I just don't see the synergy. That is the issue. For that, I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10. All right. Moving on, I'm just going to grab a drink real quick as we move on to Digitale. Just give me 1 second. All right, moving on, we have Digitale's team, which is Baxcalibur, Xurkitree, Wo-Chien, Magmortar, Armaldo, Dusclops, Sawsbuck, Bibarel, Toxapex, and Jumpluff. And we have Terra Captains with Armaldo and Sawsbuck. So my biggest issue with this team is that outside of Jumpluff, it is lacking speed. Not slow, lacking speed. What do I mean by that? When I say lacking speed, I mean you don't really have a lot of Pokemon that can reliably boost their speed or get them, or have to rely on other means, such as Choice Scarf or D-Dance. Like, they aren't reliably fast out the gate, and that can be an issue in my eyes. The biggest issue I have with this, I usually see, like, at least one carry that can be fast, I don't see it here. When your fastest Pokemon besides Jumpluff is Sawsbuck at 95, I think you have a bit of an issue. And there's not really many ways to circumvent this. So the biggest two that there would be D-Dance on Bax or Skill Shot on Bax, unless is Skill Shot banned. Skill Shot is banned. Okay, so no Skill Shot for Bax, but you'll still commonly see D-Dance on Bax, and then you'll probably see Choice Scarf on Xurkitree. Those are the two main ones that I see. The big upside Choice Scarf, it solves your speed issue, but then the downside is, well, now you're trapped into it. So, what benefits does this team still have? I still think there is the potential for a bit more of a decent course. Remember I was talking about, I like that 2 defensive, 1 offensive. You do have that with Magmortar, Wo-Chien, and Toxapex. You can also run double offensive with Sawsbuck in its place. And I think, actually, I kind of like that. I think Magmortar has the potential to hit pretty hard, especially with, Fire Blast and its coverage moves. And I think Wo-Chien and Toxapex are really good defensive mons. And this team's, especially with Dusclops, this team has absolute one of defensive core. I will say, Jumpluff can help actually this team a lot, and through one main way. Tailwind. Tailwind plus a U-turn mon. So good. It does, however, really limit your Tailwind turns, because I believe Tailwind's only 5 turns. 4 turns. Okay, so that's the thing. You lose. You only really get 2 turns with Tailwind with Jumpluff, unless Jumpluff is your mon using it, which you shouldn't. Jumpluff's probably going to be more of a utility mon with Strength Sap, Tailwind, U-turn, Baton Pass even. Which it does give good pivot. It actually does help this team out a good bit. And I think Sawsbuck and Bax and Magmortar and Xurkitree all can do absolute damage. I think simple Swords Instant Barrel with Aqua Jet and Quick Attack actually can absolutely help. I'm struggling to see what Armaldo's point is on this team. That's the mon I really don't see, especially with the Terra. It feels a little confused to me, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. But overall, no, I do like this team. I like this team actually a fair bit. I have to agree with... Zach gave this an 8.3. I kind of have to agree, and I'll give it an 8. In all honesty, I will admit, before Jumpluff got drafted, I was planning on having this a lot lower. I would still like for this team to have a bit more speed. So, whether it might be dropping Bax for Garchomp or something else of that sort. What else? Just giving it a little bit more speed. And actually, now that I think about it, I might drop it down to 7.5. No, it's still. I think it's still an 8. But is it better than Austin's team? Austin's the other 8 right now. I think it's worse than Austin's. Yeah. Alright, moving on. We are on to Guy's team. So, Guy's team is Meowscarada, Conkeldurr, Nidoqueen, Tinkaton, Glaceon, Lantern, Crocodile, Druddigon, Yanmega, and Alakazam. All with Terra Captains and Glaceon and Crocodile. First off, let's talk about speed. Speed's the most important stat. It's got good speed. Meowscarada is super fast. Alakazam hits hard and is fast. And Yanmega is also got speed boost to counteract its slightly slower speed. I always forget Tinkaton's that fast. Bulk-wise as well, though, you've got some really good bulky Pokemon like Conkeldurr and Druddigon. And Nidoqueen as well has decently hidden bulk. Can run either defensive sets or sheer force offensive. It'll probably be sheer force no matter what. I think Poison Point's a little bit troll, and you don't want rivalry, it's so gimmicky. I'm struggling to see what Crocodile's point is on this team, and as looking at those weaknesses, it's very ground weak. It does Meowscarada might not be a grass type all the time. It will be able to switch in though, thankfully. But then your only other but it still does not want to take it like an earthquake. But your only other grass ground resist is immunity and Yanmega, which is nice. It's a free turn for you, but again, Yanmega is not the best of defensive pivots, and like that essentially means you have to bring Yanmega every week, and it's a very, very, very stealth rock sweep Pokemon. Should I ever look? I never really looked at Digi's hazards. I was talking about speed too much. Oh, never mind. That's that drops it down. Never mind, yeah. That lowers my rating down to 7.5. You have really good hazard options on this team, but you don't have removal options as much. I think Conkeldurr can suffer from 4 moveset syndrome a lot, and Yanmega could actually end up running, I think, for this team, a bit more of a, utility role with Defog and... I can't remember what Hompass if it's running Tinted Lens, but does Yanmega get Roost? I feel like it gets Roost. It doesn't get Protect. It does not get Roost. Damn. But Speed Boost is a great ability. It does get Detect as well. Does it get U-Turn? I don't know if it gets U-Turn. Oh, it does. So yeah, I could see Yanmega running like that sort of come in on a ground type choice band mon, force it to switch out, you defog on the turn, you turn out. And I could see that being a reliable way to get rid of your hazards. And with 3 mons to set up rocks and a spiker and 2 toxic spikers, plus a grounded poison as well, I think you might be in a better position for hazards. I think Glaceon as a Terra Captain is pretty good because it's not... Glaceon's absolutely a Pokemon that is hindered by its typing. It's got very good special attack and good defenses. It could absolutely be a decent bulky attacker, bulky special attacker I should say. This team is definitely more specially offensive than physically, with Conkeldurr, Druddigon, and Meowscarada basically being your special or your physical bonds. Conkeldurr absolutely great for it. Same with Meowscarada. Druddigon I feel is better as a utility mon though. Just its move pool with Glare, Sucker Punch, Stealth Rock, Dragon Tail. You don't really want to run it offensive. But in a lot of ways, I really like this team. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, so Zach gave it a 7.6 out of 10. I disagree. I think this is actually better than Austin's team. And I'm going to give it an 8. The other big issue I see with this team, though, and actually I forgot to press on it, core options, you don't really have a core. And that could be to its death. I guess the closest thing you have to a core is the Meowscarada, Crocolar, and Lantern, which could do some work. I'm not big on it though. I guess you have Steel Fairy and Dragon between just Tinkaton and Druddigon, but I don't like that much either. I think the team could do some work though, for sure. So yeah, I'd say this doesn't have a central core and a little ground weak, but it looks like it could do some work. All right. Moving on, we've got Hagrid, and this is a funny team. So, for Hagrid's team, we've got Golden Go, Tyranitar, Gigalith, Toedscruel, Lycanroc, Midnight, Probopass, Dreadnought, and Cradily, Corviknight, and Stunfisk with Terra, Toedscruel, and Dreadnought. This is a Sand team through and through. I've never seen a more committed to the bit weather team than this. And, yeah, let's talk about that. So, for starters, I think it has an issue of any team with just steel, ground, and rock types would have major weaknesses. And I mean major. Let's talk about how big some of them are. So first off, you only have one water resist slash immunity, and that is Cradley. Cradley will basically have to be on the team every week, along with either Gigalith or Tyranitar. Just take advantage of the sand. In that same regard, you only have one. You're pretty slow actually. Now that I think about it, but that's off topic. Well, kind of on topic, but you have a single resist and a immunity to ground. Corviknight will also have to be on the team every week, but I think you could have a good core with like Tyranitar, Corviknight, Golden Go, but it feels a little weak in some regards. Actually, Tyranitar and Golden Go, now that I think about it, is actually a pretty good combo. I should also preface, originally this was actually Garganacl instead of Corviknight. Hagrid swapped to Corviknight. And I think another mon that could be very good instead of Corviknight would be maybe Gliscor. Let's be real, Golden Go and Gliscor, very good common, good together. Hazards, you have a million different ways to set Stealth Rocks. In fact, almost everything on this team can set Stealth Rocks, except for the Steel types and Toad Scroll. Oh, and Stomp Gun. Yeah. So more than enough. You're quite bulky, which is also very nice, and you do hit hard. You have some very physically strong Pokemon. You have a few Pokemon like Tyranitar, Dreadnought, and Golden Go who can kind of sweep it / deal a lot of damage. But this team, I think, it does need more hazards if it really wants to do work. You don't have a lot for momentum and, well, water and grass types. Well, less grass types with Corviknight. But really, water types, ground types, they're going to be very scary for you to deal with. Interesting to see what you'll do with your Terra Captains. I've never really thought of Toadstool as like a good Terramon. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. This is definitely on the weaker, and I'm going to give this I'm going to say 6 out of 10. And I'm gonna say that swapping Corviknight for Gliscor could be very good. Gives you a bit more in that regard. All right. Moving on. That is us done with the first part of this. So that's the first. Whatever. I believe that's the first 8 people. We got 10 more to do. So we're gonna start with Jacques. So for Jacques' team, we got Dragapult, Glamora, Togekiss, Terra Arboliva, Terra Vikavolt, Poliwrath, Avalugg, Golduck, and Excadrill. I like this a lot, frankly. First off, I also gotta say, Jacques, fuck you! Fuck you! I wanted Togekiss so bad and you stole it from me. I think this is a very good team, though. Let's start off with the clear winners. Very strong Steel Fairy Dragon Core with Dragapult, Togekiss, and Excadrill. I think they cover their weaknesses a lot. Ground type, switching for the next Excadrill, switching Togekiss. Sorry, electric type threatening Togekiss, switching Excadrill. Fairy type threatening Dragapult, switching Excadrill. Big things is those ones are weak too. That this team doesn't really have coverage for. Ice types are going to hurt it, I think. But that's where the other team members come in. Poliwrath, Avalugg, and Golduck all don't mind taking Ice type hit. I should also say, Terra Arboliva is interesting. I want to see what it'll do. Vikavolt as well. I'm wondering if maybe we'll just have some Terra Electric Vikavolt so it can just really hit hard. Because God knows that thing can't really do much else. Any other Pokemon stats, obviously a team like this is going to be a bit more especially offensive. You're really relying on Dragapult and Excadrill for your physical attack. Let's not say Avalugg and Poliwrath can't do some work. That Poliwrath is the one sticking out. Poliwrath and Golduck are the 2 that I'm wondering, what the fuck do you do? I guess Poliwrath does have Fighting Stab, which can be nice. But both are Swift Foot Mons and there's no rain. I guess Water Reserve can also give Poliwrath a little bit more benefit, and they're probably running that. I'm curious to see what Golduck will be doing. I know there are 3 weather teams, and it could be funny if Jacques scheduled against all of them. I know, so I see scheduled against 2 of them. Is scheduled against all 3 of them? He's scheduled against 2 of them. Okay, so he is scheduled against 2 weather teams, actually back to back. So like Golduck could be putting in work for those weeks, just by denying with Cloud9. We'll see though. Oh wait, I'm done with this tab. But overall, I like this team. You have a lot of hazards in just Glamora. Oh, I didn't even touch on Glamora. I think this Glamora is so good. It's a reliable hazard setter with toxic debris, as well as all hazard moves. But it's also just a really good like offensive mon, like choice specs, timid, Glamora. That thing can hit hard, and I think a lot of people underrated its power. I think the team's lacking a little bit of speed outside of Dragon Bolt, just with the next highest thing is 88. And you don't really have Sand to boost extra. I mean, that's not to say it doesn't have Rapid Spin, which does increase its speed, which is very nice. Togekiss can provide some nice utility, / just be aids to fight, depending on how the opponent's doing. And you've got Webs with Vigavolt. No, this is pretty good. I'm going to give this like an 8.5 out of 10. No, actually, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And I think, what does that give it? I could be completely wrong. Does that give it a 7? I strongly disagree. I mean, I do think the biggest issue is, like, outside of Glamora and Vigavolt Webs, you don't really have a lot of hazards. Yeah, so maybe I will give it an 8.5 out of 10. Really strong core, but lacking speed outside. So yeah, 8.5 out of 10. Really strong core and Mons, but it's lacking speed outside of Dragapult, and very happy on a few Mons for hazards. Overall, though, I think it's a pretty solid team. Now we're on to mine. I love my team. I want to preface by saying that I love these guys. So let's talk about the team. We've got Walking Wake, Torkoal, Terra Venusaur, Jellicent, Magneton, Durant, or Terra Magneton, Durant, Togetic, Electric, Great Tusk, and Liepard. I'm going to try and be as biased as I can, or unbiased as I can, but I think this is just a very strong team. And let's break it down. So, let's talk about speed. On paper, nothing above 109. Looks good. But let's look at those Pokemon that are above 100. So we got Liepard, Wake, and Durant. Actually, I'm going to talk about all Pokemon 80 and above. So let's talk about all of my fast Pokemon, quote unquote, also have ways to negate to become even faster. So Liepard has Prankster, so we have that gives us Prankster Thunder Wave, Taunt. It also has this really good utility move pool with Fake Out, Knock Off, and U-Turn. Durant can run First Impression, and I think is actually a really good First Impression user, especially with Hustle, Choice Band. It can be just gross. And also Great Tusk and Venusaur and Wake. Venusaur or Wake and Great Tusk can synthesize to get faster speed if they wanted to. And then Venusaur has Chlorophyll. And with Torkoal, this is absolutely a Sun team. The reason for Jellicent is I wanted a bulky special mod. It was supposed to be Togekiss, but that got taken. And Jellicent felt like the next best thing in ways. And I think it will do its job well. It gives me that water immunity. It's also just a really good mod. And defensively, it gets Will-O-Wisp, Strength Stap, Cover. It also has a good coverage move step that can actually hurt. I'm a fan of it. Magneton, I feel like, felt really nice for a Steel type, especially with Terra. It's absolutely going to be really good. Electric has some really nice resistances and immunities, and Togetic has some really nice support. All I'm really going to say about the team, I'm not going to score it, I'm not going to include it. I don't feel comfortable doing that, because I know myself, I can't keep my bias in check. I will say I am absolutely lacking hazards. I'm giving people so much flack for that. And yes, only 2 of my mons have Stealth Rocks, and that's it. But those are 2 mons that will absolutely be core to my team, so I'm perfectly fine. Especially with them also having removal, and then also we have defog on Togetic. Like, I think my team can absolutely give Hazards a bit of issue. It is also a priority lacking team. Like, I'm never going to run Aqua Jet on Wake. It's not a good move for it. But I think the mons that I do have, they can do work. Moving on! We go on to Kiler's team. So the team is as follows. Lando T, Slowbro, Ferrothorn, Pheasantipede, Virizion, Crawdaunt, Centiscorch, Drampa, Avalokasui, and Totodile. Yes, Totodile! Oh, with Terra Captains in Virizion and Avalokasui. I feel like I've been transported back in time to, like, Gen 7, which is what Zach said. This is a very, very defensive team. I think Virizion helps this team a lot. I believe Virizion was actually a swap. And I'm correct, it was actually Porygon Z to begin with. And I think Virizion does actually indeed do this team a good bit of work. So, my big issue with this team is it is a very defensive, very slow team. And it doesn't have a lot of weaknesses, which I think is very good, especially for a defensive team. I guess a flying type could be an issue for you, but I don't think that's necessarily a big issue for you. Necessarily, but as I said, it's a defensive team. Speed-wise, your highest is 108 with Virizion, and then you have nothing else above 100, which I think could be a concern. I was wondering if this team could run Trick Room, which I'm not a big fan of for singles. I'll be honest. And it could with Slowbro. That's the other issue. I feel like your defensive core is very clearly Ferrothorn and Slowbro. I feel like it's very easy for both of these Pokemon to just be a little bit taken advantage of. But we'll see. I think this team could absolutely do some work. I think Avalokasui being a Terra Captain is nice because that means it's not trapped with an awful typing. On that note, though, I don't like having to use your Terra just to make a Pokemon usable. That's something I'm never really a fan of. With Virizion, though, I think it's also good for Virizion. Virizion has the benefit of being a 90-90 Pokemon for offenses, so it makes it really good either Swords Dance or Calm Mind. With Terra, I think it could absolutely become frightening, either transforming into either Pure Grass or Pure Fighting Terra. Take advantage of its smooth pool on either side. So, like, maybe like Calm Mind, Terra Grass for like Giga Drains, or or Swords Dance, Terra Fighting, Sacred Sword, or also just other types. It does. I think it is a little bit. I want to say it is a little bit lacking in move pool. Let's take a look. Let me take a look. I could be wrong. A lot of grass. Yes, a lot of grass, a lot of fighting, a lot of normal. That could be an issue. You get like Stone Edge, Mark Strike. I think I saw Air Slash earlier for some reason. Yeah. What the fuck? So, like, that could be an issue. I think Priority Vacuum Wave could be actually really nice for it. As far as hazards go, like, I don't think... You have a few good Stealth Rock Setters, a couple Defoggers, and a Rapid Spinner. I'm not big on slow Rapid Spinners as much, like Avalug. Just if we talk like the old form of like Suicide Leads, it kind of like goes against like the archetypes like form. And I think I like a faster mon for like my hazard removal. It usually just lets you also avoid taunt, which will make it hard for Drampa, but Lando should be able to reliably remove it if it is running Defog. You do have Lando T, which is a really good mon, obviously. It's kind of had a hard gen, but like I think it's still a good mon. Overall, I'm going to give this team an 8. I think this is the top of the 8, so it's going to be below Jacques, above Guy. And I'm going to say 8 out of 10. Strong mons in defensive core. But I am struggling to see how I think you have to rely on some other, not good mons necessarily do damage. Oh, I haven't talked about Crawdon. Oh my god. It's a good D-Dance mon, adaptability Aqua that can fucking hurt, let's be clear. But it's also another mon where like its defensive typing plus its stat line really, really weak. Lets it really be bullied. But that's a... I guess the other mod I should talk about is Pheasantipity before I move on. I think this mod sucks. I use it in another draft league, and I found myself barely bringing it. Just it has a very good special defense and a decent speed and attack. 88's not bad for HP, and 82 is okay for defense. But with an Earthquake Weak Mon, you really don't want that stat line. All right, moving on. We have Lex's team. So for Lex's team, we have Tapu Fini, Raikou, Hydrapple, Mienshao, Houndoom, Bombardier, Eldegoss, Sudowoodo, Megazord, and Garbodor is not correct. I am sorry. It is actually said Viper. Which, okay, let's talk about this team. First of all, let's talk about speed. Highest is 115, which isn't necessarily that bad, but I think there's absolutely teams that are obviously way faster. Oh, and also Terra, Houndoom, and Eldegoss. So we have a triple regenerator team, actually, with Eldegoss, Mienshao, and Hydrapple. Which could potentially be interesting. Jury's out on how good it'll be if all three of those mons will be brought every week. I think probably not. Eldegoss is a bit more of a utility mon as well, whereas Mienshao's like half utility, half offense, and then Hydrapple's like mostly offense, just with the moves it gets. So let's talk about hazards. Or should I say the lack of. So you have two rockers with Sudowoodo and Bombardier, and then Sudowoodo can also set spikes. On Defog side, you've only got Tapu Fini, Scizor, and Rapid Spin. I don't like that. I really don't, because again, as I was talking about with Abelogasui, I don't like slow rapid spinners, and Eldegoss is certainly one of those with base 60. Tapu Fini, you never want to run Defog on. And actually, this team in general, because you're going to probably want Misty Terrain for your defensive profile against Dragon types and status. And running Defog, you get rid of that terrain, which could be really not nice for you personally. On that regard as well, I think you have good utility and momentum with double Baton Pass, triple U-turn, and a Volt Switch mon. You're probably running U-turn and Volt Switch more than Baton Pass, though. So let's talk about the core. The most obvious core that I see off the bat is Fini, Hydrapple, and Scizor with that Feel Starry Dragon. You could also run a Firewater Grass with Terra Houndoom, Terra Eldegoss, or Hydrapple and Tapu Fini, which I like double core teams a lot. But there are some big weaknesses on this team. I don't like overlapping weaknesses. Those two cores, thankfully, I don't think they really have many. I mean, you have the Poison for Fini and Hydrapple / Eldegoss, which Houndoom doesn't resist. So that means you'd have to bring an outside Pokemon to take care of. But I think that first core can absolutely do some work with that Hydrapple, Scizor, Fini. They all cover their major weaknesses, with Fini covering Scizor's fire, Fini and Scizor covering Hydrapple's major ice weakness. I think it has the potential to also Scizor covers their poison weakness. Hydrapple covers Fini's electric weakness. List goes on, right? Oh, and they both cover Fini's grass weakness. So I think that core can do a lot of work. I think again the big issue is they're all quite slow. But this does seem to be like maybe a bit more of a bulky offense team. I think Fini is probably the third best Tapu. Just because it's terrain, frankly. Like its stat line's decent, it gets good moves, but it's like Misty Terrain isn't as good as even Grassy Terrain. I think this team, it says physically offensive. It's mainly because of Scizor and Mienshao. This team is probably going to be more specially offensive. You look at like Fini, Houndoom, Hydrapple. So Viper can run either or, which is nice. Raikou is also specially defensive. Sudowoodo is probably going to be running more utility, which is decent for the team. Like I think Sudowoodo's actually got a good profile for utility mod with Sucker Punch, Rocks and Spikes, Stab. I mean, It's got Stab, Rockhead, Head Smash, which is very nice. It also gets Woodhead as coverage. I could also run like sturdy setup, like lead guaranteed mods. I like this team a lot. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Zach rated it a little bit, not highly. I want to say he rated it like. Yeah, he rated it at 13th. He rated it below Jacques and Kiler. I think it is certainly around that range. I would probably say I'm probably gonna put it in like. I want to say it's in that 8 range. I want to say it's below Guy's team though. And that's one point with my scoring. We have a lot of like 8 out of 10s. That's because what I'm saying is like I think a lot of these teams could reliably win. I think they have a lot of win cons. I don't know if necessarily they have like they don't have every tool at their disposal, if that makes sense. I'm trying to think of like, is there anything I'd really change this team? I know like Lex had a lot of her Pokemon taken from her, which does suck. She's also on the video with a Mega. I was just wondering where some Pokemon like Raikou. Like, where does Raikou fit in this team? That is what confuses me. I feel like Raikou could be placed with different ones, but who knows? Alright, moving on. We have Lynn's team. Lynn's team is Darkrai, Crobat, Reuniclus, Gardevoir, Charizard, Glalie, Executor, Bastiodon, Melmetal, Alolan Dugtrio. Terra type has not been declared. First thing I want to clarify, Darkrai, no sleep. Not allowed. No Hypnosis, no Dark Void. Both are banned. However, this team does have other methods of sleep. Gardevoir has Hypnosis, Executor, I believe, has Sleep Powder. And that could actually help the team a little bit. It could be a way to pseudo activate Sleep Powder. I guess it's not included because it doesn't have 100% accuracy, but let's talk about these on speed. We got a very fast team. Very, very fast. We have 130, 125, 110, 100. And Gardevoir usually likes to run a Choice Scarf. Speaking of Gardevoir, let's talk about the type overlaps. 3 Psychics and 3 Steels. On top of that, we have 2 Psychics that do the exact same thing in Reuniclus and Executor. Both are going to be bulky special attackers. And if you don't believe me, look at their stat profiles. 95. It's not that bulky, actually. And let's look at that type coverage. I would get rid of one of them, personally, in my eyes. I think you have massive weaknesses with your triple steel and your triple psychic to fire, water, ghost and dark. So which ones would I get rid of? I would probably swap out Executor. Let's double check what tier is Executor. There's tier 5. The issue is Executor is your only water resist, and your only fire resist is Charizard. Charizard doesn't want to come in on a fire move, really. It's just not bulky enough. I don't think it even doesn't really get Roost, if I'm mistaken. Let me double check. Oh, it does. Never mind. It does get Roost. That being said, I feel like this team kind of wants to run Sun in a way with both Charizard and Executor, and I might not necessarily even be against it. It's some of that water weakness a little bit. And so one of the mons, Ninetales is available in tier 3, which could replace either Uniclus or Gardevoir. It doesn't help with that fire resist. Or it does help with the fire resist. It doesn't help with the water resist. It actually makes it a little bit worse. And so I maybe look to maybe try and get like a water absorb mod if you can. I don't know which ones are still available. If I can see any off the top of my head. Oh, Parasect with Dry Skin could actually like benefit this team. So like if you got like Dry Skin Parasect in place, but if you want to run Sun, not necessarily. But I think actually Parasect could actually somewhat benefit this team. Let me take a look. Slightly bigger walker. This, but 5. But it does give you a water immunity, which I think is always a bit better than a resist, you know. Okay. On that note, I think there's just two big weaknesses for me to really call this good. I like the speed. I think this team also maybe like needs like a fairy or a dragon, or maybe a water type actually would just really help it. Water type with Charizard and Executor could have like a core, a bulky water. This team would love a bulky water. Hazards. You do actually have reliable hazard removal. It might not look like it, even with only 2 defoggers. Crobat loves to run defog. It's actually a surprisingly like bulky utility mod with 85 and 80 and 80s in its defenses and 130 speed, max HP, max speed. Crobat with like utility moves like Taunt, U-turn, defog, not entirely unheard of. So like I like Crobat, I like Darkrai. I don't like the triple steel, don't like the triple psychic. Really needs a water type. And for that, I'm gonna give this 6.5 out of 10. All right, moving on from Lynn. We move on to Maggie. All right. So, for Maggie's team, we have the following: Naganadel, Diancie, Terra-Obstagoon, Brambleghast, Togedemaru, Altaria, Camerupt, Behem, Cobalion, Terra-Aurorus, and Walrein. This team does feel a little all over the place. So let's talk about this. First, let's talk about the core. So let's talk about the swaps as well. Originally, this was actually Breloom over Cobalion, and you have that core of Naganadel or Altaria, Diancie, and Cobalion for that Steel Fairy Dragon. You could also technically run a Firewater Grass with Bramble, Camerupt, and Walrein, but that's far less powerful. You're not going to be running that. You do have another Steel type in Togedemaru, but like usually you want a more defensive Steel type in a core, and well. Look at Cabalion's 129.72 over 63.73, and you'll be quick to answer why Togedemaru is not your go-to defensive steel. On that note, very good hazard setter and removal. I think Bramble works really well for getting rid of hazards, especially because it's good hazard denial, removal denial as well, and it gets spikes. I like Brambleghast a lot. Zaxxon and Nagandel's got to put a lot of work in, I agree. So onto that core that I talked about, that Cobalion, Naganadel, and Diancie. One big issue. Ground weak. Ground weak. Ground weak. Also ground weak. Also ground weak. Also ground weak. You have 5 ground weaknesses and 1 immunity and 1 resist. That to me is a recipe for disaster because it feels like you're going to have to bring Altaria every week to cover your ground resists. Altaria can work as a decent, like, bulky utility mod with that 90 and 105 and 75. Does get Heal Bell. I believe it gets Roost. I could be wrong, though. Let me double check that. I feel like I see this Pokemon all the time in Rambats, though. Yeah, it does. So like Defog, Roast, Will-O-Wisp, Brave-Bird, it's got good utility. I think it could actually, unless it's Terraband, which is not, I think it could have been a bit of a Terraband. I don't like the Terra Aurorus that much. I guess it just makes Aurorus a bit more of a real Pokemon. There's kind of like a Snow duo with like Aurorus Walrein, which I don't really understand. It leaves me a little bit lost for words. Also on the hazard side, we have a very reliable hazard setup, a lot of different options, and two, I'd say one decent and one solid removal. Especially with one that you know will probably be there at all times. You have a lot of overlapping weaknesses on this team, and that could absolutely spell disaster. Moving aside from the issues on the team, let's talk about the other mons outside the core, because I do think, despite the ground weakness, the core could absolutely work decently well. Nagando's a really good Pokemon. I think Cobalion's a little bit underrated. Just as a utility mon, I think it gets like Thunderwave, Stealth Rocks, and it's got like 90-90 with Swords Dance and Calm Mind, so it can get, again, set up on either side. Definitely nothing to scoff at by any means. And Diancie, I think, is underrated. Diancie's pretty good with the draft because it can be a bulky mon on either side of the spectrum. Don't let that 50 HP be fooled you. 150 is more than enough defense. But let's talk about the other mons. Talk about like the Snow Core. Talk about Bramble. Togedemaru, I think can be interesting, but I think the mon's just too frail to really be good. It gets Nuzzle, it gets Iron Head, Zing Zap, and Spiky Shield. I believe it gets U-Turn as well. Yep. So like it can absolutely do a little bit of utility, but it's just I don't think that good. I love the little guy. He's adorable, but like he's not good. BHM feels a little out of place. Like it's just got strong special attack, but you already have that, but better with Naganadel. In fact, it's not even like a bulky special attacker that much. It's got like slightly better special bulk than Naganadel, but overall like that's it. It's way slower. Again, I guess Psychic, it hits a different stat line. Camerupt is awful. Let's make that very clear. You don't ever use Camerupt unless you really have to. It's a ground immunity. It's an electric immunity. That's really all it is. Obstagoon, I think, is decent. I like Obstagoon. I think it has interesting move pools with, like, Stab Facade, Guts, which is just gross. I mean, it's decently fast. Obstruct is a nice, interesting, like, alternative to Protect. Dark types that can't be Prankster Taunted either. Stab Knockoff is nice. I think it gets Knockoff. Yep, it's actually her only mon Knockoff. I gotta give this like a 7 out of 10. I believe it's below Bacon, though. It's above Lynn's, though. Just because you don't have a lot of overlap. So, yeah, 7 out of 10. Really strong core, in my eyes. Some mods just feel out of place, like the Aurorus Walrein, the Togedemaru, Camerupt, and BHM. So if I, what I would change is, I'd keep, Nagando, Cobalion, Obstagoon, Bramble, Taria, Diancie. I'd change the Togedemaru, Walrein, Aurorus, Camerupt, BHM. I'd change those 5. Or not all of them necessarily, but maybe look at, some options for others, just because I'm unsure what they're doing. But the team is just very ground weak, and I think that's absolutely an issue. Moving on, we have Nate, who I'm considering this the antithesis of my team. If I have a Sun team, Nate has a Rain team. So we have Palafin, Pelipper, Galvantula, Whimsicott, Claydol, Kabutops, Weirdeer, Swalot, Gudra Hisui, Toxicroak, Turtonator. I like this team a lot, actually. I'll be frank with you, I like this team a lot. So for starters, we do have the makings of the titular Fire, Water, Grass, and Steel Fairy Dragon core on this team. Although, I guess Gudra Hisui kind of counts as both Steel and Dragon. But a Rain team with double cores, nothing to scoff at. You also have really good speed with this. I think Palafin is a criminally underrated Pokemon. That's not a 70. We all know it's not a 70. Oh wait, what am I saying? Palafin's underrated. I'm sorry. I'm on no sleep. I think Toxicroak is actually like hiddenly like pretty decent for a rain team as well. Just with it's probably gonna be running Dry Skin anyway, so let's give him a bit more healing. I'm curious as to what Swallout does for this. I guess it brings Toxic Spikes. It's probably what Swallout does. No, but like you have some really good defensive mons with like Hisui and Gudra, Pelipper. Yeah, you heard me. Pelipper's not a bad defensive mon. It's mainly more of your just rain setter guy. You have a few rain abusers as well, though. Like Alvantia likes rain for like the super thunder things. Whimsicott with Tailwind as well. Palafin likes rain. Kabutops, Swiftwind Mon. So you have a few for sure designated like rain abusers, quote unquote. Grass types beware. Weird can run Sap Sipper and just completely negate them, which can be really good for Palafin. Your goal for this team will be to keep Palafin alive, and you do have a Sap Sipper and a ground type, so it can absolutely do that. It does have a bit of a ground weakness, though, if you take a look. Like, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weak Pokemon weak to ground. I hate those shared weaknesses, but I think this is a very solid team. I don't know what... And let's be real, like, you'll probably bring, like, Pelipper and maybe Claydol every single week. Claydol does have the benefit of being both a Rapid Spinner. Actually, you have 3 Rapid Spinners, one of which is one of your Rain Abusers, and 2 Defoggers, one of which has Prankster. You also have you have a Toxic Spike setter, you have 2 Rock setters, again, both of which already have a good slot on the team, and a Web setter. Very nice. And you have plenty of W turn, you have Volt Switch, you have Flip turn. Good priority. I think this is a 9.5 out of 10. This is above Bradzi in my eyes. I talked about how, like, I think Bradzi's team, like, I'd say it's, like, the one to beat right now. I think this beats it. You have Pokemon that can outspeed the Mega Lop. You've got some, like, really good setup mons. You've got really good denial. You've got hazards, strong hazards. I'm going to give Nate 9.5 out of 10. Got really strong all around, good ways to protect your carries. Big weakness to ground may hurt, but again, you're always going to have Pelipper anyways, most likely. But yeah, no, I like this team a good amount. Moving on. 3 teams left. We start with foes. By the way, I just want to say fuck off foe. I wanted a Broseph originally. Really sad I didn't get it. Actually, I had to like rework my entire team's plan because I didn't get Broseph. I was also considering Drifblim for a bit. So we've got Spectrier, Sneasler, Rillaboom, Blastoise, Drifblim, Broseph, Gramble, Aggron, Ampharos, Dotrio, Terra, Aggron, and Blastoise. Let's start with the core. You don't have a fire type, but like water, grass, you're not running those core. These 2 are your core. Sneasler, Rillaboom, and they are very good at it. Speed. You probably have what is essentially the fastest Pokemon in the league, being Unburdened Sneasler. Nothing's going to outspeed it, let's be real. There's no like Regieleki or anything. And I think this team has very good type coverage. I think Spectre is just a disgustingly broken Pokemon. I actually am surprised we even allowed it. Yeah. Like, I don't think it should have been, if I'm being frank. Like, that's how much I think this team is good. I think Spectre, just because Spectre, very strong special attacker, which I will say this team is, like, physical. And then you have, like, Spectrier. I mean, you have, I guess, Blastoise, Ampharos. Like, Blastoise is kind of even. It mainly does just run special, though, just because it has slightly better in its water type. Like, water types are special attackers by like, nature. You technically have an ice weakness, but, like, you absolutely have mons like Blastoise and Aggron that don't mind taking it. Let's talk about those Terra types, though. Actually, well, let's talk about those Terras. I think Blastoise. I'm curious what it's going to do. I genuinely have never seen this Mon be a Terra captain, so I don't know what its goal is going to be on the team. Or at least what it's going to be doing with Terra. I believe, does Blastoise get a Wish now? No, it doesn't. I thought it did. You're extremely lacking Hazards. I think that's absolutely an issue. Blastoise is decent, I will say, reliable removal, though. It likes to run Rapid Spin. It's going to be probably more of a utility mon, is my guess, especially with Shell Smash being banned. I think Mabosstiff for a tier 4, very strong mon. Not because of its Intimidate, but because Stakeout makes it so it's very hard for Pokemon to switch in on it. Gramble, I think, is also a decent tier 4. Intimidate, pretty bulky. I mean, pseudo bulky on physical side with Intimidate, and it's just also 120 is nice to have for attack. Aggron, it's the same issue as Killer's Avalugg. You have what is essentially you're making it a real Pokemon, and I think that is kind of not a waste of a Terra slot, but it's like you have to Terra it now. What it will Terra into? I'm guessing water, because it'll be a bulky water then. I think though, like Dragon could also work. Same with Fire. I mean, if you do Terra Fire or Dragon, it could be good. I think the issue is, I think this team needs would like another Steel type outside of Aggron, but I could be wrong. Maybe not. I also think could want a Fire type, but honestly, I'm giving this team giving this team a 9.5 out of 10. I'm going to rate this under Nate's team though. Oh, that's the other thing I will critique this team on. Despite being very good hyper offense, I feel like this team would love to have a ground type for some reason. Like, the fact that there's no ground type or just feels wrong in a way. But, no, I think overall this team is very solid. Alright, 2 teams left. Moving on, we've got Violet's team. So for Violet's team, we have Dracovish, Infernape, Toxtricity, Ditto, Masquerain, Mega Steelix, Go-Goat, Mightyena, Tapu Lele, and Lampin. Let's talk about cores, or really the, frankly, lack of one. For lack of a better word, I don't really see a core on this team. I see Dracovish, Infernape, and Go-Goat as maybe your one. I suppose you could run Tapu Lele, Dracovish, Mega Steelix, which will probably be what ends up happening. I really hate Mega Steelix. Like, sure, it has 230 defense, but it has okay HP at best, and it does really die in like one Hydro Pump from like any water type. Or an Earth Power, or you get the idea. It's still very specially weak. It has Steel and Ground don't really cover each other's weaknesses that much, besides like Grass and Ice. But like, I feel like they don't cover their weaknesses as much as they could. I think the team does have some good defensive mons with Tapu Lele. It still looks good to do some work. Ditto's always decent for Draft League. It makes it kind of hard to just, like, set up and run away with it, because you can always just have Ditto in the back, just copy them and be faster than you. Terra Ditto, I'm wondering how good that'll be. I don't know. Terra Toxtricity, that is for Shift Gear. It's so you can run Shift Gear, Terra Normal, Boom Burst with Throat Spray. That's exactly what it's for. And I think that'll be a little bit readable. I think any Ghost type then kind of, like, makes you have to switch out. Is this all? Yeah, no, this is all 10. It feels decently slow, at least compared to some of the other teams. Like, obviously, I think it's going to look slow compared to, like, Foe. And there's no real way to boost your speed. Like, Dracovish is probably going to always be running Choice Scarf. You might run Shift Gear on Toxtricity. Why the word fail me. And, like, Ditto's always going to run Choice Scarf, but, like, Ditto speed doesn't matter. I'm trying to struggle to see some Pokemon fall in. You do have a big water weakness. I mean, Dracovish is quarter resisting. It's not going to be running Water Absorb. It's going to be running Strawler on every game. I mean, why wouldn't you be? That Pokemon can be disgusting. Hazard removal, it all comes down to Masquerain, and I think that is really bad. Just in my, like, the time that, like, you get set up, I feel like it's going to be like, okay, now what? Zach gave it a good score for its offense. I kind of disagree. I think the offense is really good. I think Infernape is actually just a really good draft mon. So is Tapu Lele. And Webbs absolutely does help this team. But I feel like vice versa, you get bogged down so much by hazards on the enemy from the enemy side. I feel like defensively this team is very reliant on Lele and Steelix, and I don't feel like Lele is... How good is Lele defensively, actually? It could be... Okay, so 75, 115. Okay, so... It's got a good, like, specially defensive profile, but it's not going to do much to protect you on the physical side. I will say, Psychic Terrain, probably the best terrain in my opinion, just because of its additional effect with blocking priority moves. It makes it very hard to deal with. But that can also bite you in the ass. Mighty Ant likes to run Sucker Punch. Infernape likes to run Fake Out. I'm going to have to give this team... I'm going to give this team a 7.5 out of 10. I'm going to put it above Digi. Strong offense, feels weak defensively. Just feels like Psychic Terrain could maybe bite you in the butt. And also just... it feels like Masquerain is basically like a must-have for each battle. And Masquerain, very frail Pokemon, can easily be bullied out of the field. Now then, on to our last team. Zach's team. So for Zach's team, we have Iron Valiant, Kartana, Crocodile, Chandelure, Kilowattrel, Tatsugiri, Mr. Rhyme, Ariados, Murkrow, Toucannon with Terra, Chandelure, and Tatsugiri. This is an offense team if I've ever seen it. I could try and judge a core, which you do have with Iron Valiant, Kartana, Tatsugiri, and I think Tatsugiri for a tier 4 Mon, really fucking good steal. I think that Mon is very nice, very lovely little fella. I love him. So let's talk about that core. I think Iron Valley is disgusting. I think this screams hyper offense. I think you are so weak to Stealth Roxel, my friend. Holy shit. Every mon's going to be bringing heavy duty boots. Every single Pokemon on your team will be having heavy duty boots. Let's talk hazards. You have one Rock Setter. You have one Toxic Spikes. You have one Sticky Webs. Where are the hazards? Not on this team. You have Murkrow, though. I love Prankster Defog. I think Tatsugiri likes to have Rapid Spin anyways. It like, gives it a little speed boost, especially with its moves like Nasty Plot and... Or not Nasty Plot, Draco and Scald. Does it get Flip Turn? No, it doesn't. I'm completely wrong. Let's talk about the other ones on this team. Iron Valiant is really good. Kartana's really good. I think Kilowattrel is really good. It's a shame it can't Terra, which it's Terra Band. That's why it wasn't picked. I think that does absolutely hurt it, but like Electric and Flying isn't terrible stab. What else? Ariados I know is there for like webs and T-Spikes, which is okay, it'll do those. I think Mr. Rhyme is not a real Pokemon, and neither is Toucannon, which means you're basically playing with an 8-mon team, which hurts a little bit. Like, okay, when I say that, I'm slightly joking, but like, it does feel hard for this Pokemon to do things like, you know what Toucannon is going to do. It's going to run like Fury Attack, Beak Blast, Rock. It's going to run like Choice Band, Skill Link, Beak Blast, Fury Attack, Rock Blast, Bullet Seed. Mr. Rhyme's probably going to run a few special moves, and I feel like in that regard, this team is very specially offensive. Actually, oh wait, what am I saying? Kartana and Crocodile exist. Valiant can run either or, and that makes that mon absolutely gross. But that's the issue. Is like you're relying on really Chandelure, Tatsugiri. You have a lot of coverage. This is just a hyper offense team. This team will be clicking nothing but attacking moves or setup moves. And in that regard, I feel like if this team does run into a wall that can stop them, they will be stopped. But I'm going to give this a 9.5. This is up there in my eyes. Yeah, no, I really like this. If I'm being honest. I really like this. Is it better than Nate's? No, I don't think it is. And so I'm going to probably... It's definitely better than Foes. That I can say for sure. Yeah, no, I agree. It's better than Foes. It's hyper offense musical. And that I think in some ways actually could kind of hurt it, just because if you can't break a wall, like say like an unaware mon. Actually, I don't think there are any unaware mons in the league. No, this might just be actually the best team. Yeah, this might be it. I think it might struggle. I don't know if it's struggling in rain, because like Kilowattrel doesn't mind the Super Thunders, and Tatsugiri with Storm Drain. No, this is the best team in my eyes. This is the top team. I wish it had a bit more defensive mons, but it is hyper offense, the musical. Yeah, I think the big issue is bulky attackers could kind of ruin your day. But no, yeah, I think I saw them. And so that is our ranking done. So I'll go through each team from bottom last. So in last place we have Ben's team, then we have Hagrid, Lynn, Maggie, Bacon, Joseph, Digi, Violet, Austin, Lex, Guy, Kiler, Jacques, Bradzi, Tho, Nate, and Zach. If for some reason you were here this entire time, thank you for watching. This took me an hour and a half to do. Jesus Christ. Oh, my throat hurts, actually. But yeah, thank you.